Have you ever held onto anger for so long that it became part of who you are, like a weight you carry everywhere, pressing down on your chest, making every breath a little harder? This is a story about a woman named Sarah, and for 15 years, she carried a weight so heavy it nearly destroyed her. But what she discovered about forgiveness didn't just free her from the past. It completely transformed how she understood love, pain, and what it truly means to heal. Because here's the thing about forgiveness that nobody tells you. It's not about the other person. It never was. Sarah's story begins on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Standing outside a hospital room she swore she'd never enter, her hand trembling on the door handle, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Inside that room was her father, the man who abandoned her family when she was 12 years old. The man she hadn't spoken to in 15 years. The man who was now dying. And she had exactly one choice to make. Walk away forever, or walk through that door and face the person who broke her heart before she even understood what heartbreak was. Let me take you back to understand what brought Sarah to this moment. When Sarah was 12, her father left. No warning, no explanation that made sense to a child. Just gone one morning, leaving behind a note on the kitchen counter and a family that would never be the same. Her mother worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Her younger brother stopped talking for 6 months. And Sarah? Sarah built walls, thick, impenetrable walls around her heart. She told herself she didn't need him. She told herself she was better off. But the truth she buried so deep she almost forgot it existed, was that every achievement, every milestone, every moment of her life had been colored by his absence. Her high school graduation, her college acceptance letter, her first promotion, her wedding day. All of these moments came with a shadow, a silent question. Would he have been proud? Would he have cared? Now, 15 years later, Sarah had built a successful life. She was a therapist. Ironic, isn't it? Helping others work through their family trauma, while her own festered like an untreated wound. She had a loving husband, Mark, who saw through her strong exterior. She had friends, a career, a beautiful apartment in the city. But she also had nightmares, panic attacks that came out of nowhere, an inability to fully trust that anyone would stay, and a rage that would bubble up at unexpected moments, leaving her feeling out of control and ashamed. When the call came, her father's second wife on the phone, voice shaking, Sarah's first instinct was to hang up. "He has stage 4 lung cancer," the woman said. "He doesn't have long. He's been asking for you." Sarah's response was cold, automatic. "Tell him I'm busy." But Mark, gentle Mark, put his hand on hers that evening. "Sarah, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I will say this. Whatever you decide, you'll have to live with it. Make sure it's a decision you can carry, not another weight you'll have to bear." That's when Sarah realized what was truly at stake. This wasn't just about her father. It was about her. About whether she would spend the rest of her life imprisoned by the past, or whether she could find a way to be free. Not for him, for herself. Sarah walked into that hospital room on a Thursday afternoon. The smell of antiseptic and illness hit her immediately. And there he was, this man who had been larger than life in her memories, now small and frail in a hospital bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, skin gray and paper-thin. Their eyes met. "Sarah," he whispered. His voice cracked with emotion. "You came." For a moment, Sarah couldn't speak. All the words she'd rehearsed, all the anger she'd cultivated, stuck in her throat. Because the man in front of her wasn't the villain she'd built up in her mind. He was just broken, human, dying. "I didn't come to forgive you," she finally said, her voice harder than she felt. "I came because I needed to see you with my own eyes, to understand why." Her father nodded slowly, as if he'd expected nothing less. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said. "I know that. But will you let me explain? Will you give me that much? Sarah pulled up a chair, every muscle in her body tense. You have 5 minutes. What her father said next wasn't what she expected. There was no grand excuse, no revelation that made everything make sense. Instead, he told her about his own father, an abusive drunk who'd made his childhood a nightmare. About how he'd promised himself he'd be different. But when the pressure of providing for a family became too much, when he looked in the mirror and saw his father's eyes staring back at him, he panicked. I didn't leave because I didn't love you, he said, tears streaming down his face. I left because I was terrified I'd damage you the way I'd been damaged. I thought you'd be better off without me than with a father who was falling apart. Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. The beginning of it, anyway. You were wrong, she said, her voice breaking. We needed you. I needed you. And you didn't even give us a chance. I know, he whispered. I know. And I've lived with that knowledge every single day since. Sarah left that day feeling more confused than when she'd arrived. Because it's easier to hate a monster than to forgive a broken human being. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah returned to the hospital 3 more times. Each visit was painful in a different way. Her father told her stories about watching her dance recital from the parking lot because he couldn't bring himself to go inside. About the box of birthday cards he'd written but never sent. About the private investigator he'd hired just to get updates on her life, to know she was okay. That doesn't make it better, Sarah snapped during their 4th visit. You don't get to play the tortured hero. You left. You made that choice. You're right, her father said. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Sarah. I'm just trying to give you the truth. But the truth was complicated, because Sarah's therapist brain understood trauma, understood how pain cycles through generations, understood that hurt people. But her wounded 12-year-old heart just wanted to scream, You were supposed to be my dad. You were supposed to stay. The real turning point came unexpectedly. Sarah was cleaning out her old childhood bedroom at her mother's house, something she'd been avoiding for years. And there, in a shoebox at the back of her closet, she found something that shattered her carefully constructed narrative. Letters. Dozens of them. From her father to her mother, sent over the years. Letters begging to be part of their lives. Letters accompanied by child support checks that her mother had never cashed. Letters that her mother had hidden from her. Sarah confronted her mother that same evening, hands shaking as she held the letters. Her mother's face crumpled. I was protecting you, she said. He hurt us. He left us. I wasn't going to let him waltz back in whenever he felt like it. That wasn't your choice to make, Sarah shouted. Those were my letters. That was my relationship with my father, and you took it from me. That night, Sarah realized something profound and painful. She'd been carrying her mother's anger all these years, not just her own. She'd been holding on to a story that was only partially true. And while her father's leaving was real, the complete abandonment she'd felt, that had been shaped by decisions made around her, not just by him. Sarah stopped visiting the hospital. The weight of these revelations was too much. She'd spent 15 years being angry at one person, and now that anger had nowhere to go. It fragmented, scattering in directions she didn't know how to handle. She fought with her mother. She cried in Mark's arms. She canceled appointments with her own clients because how could she help anyone heal when she felt more broken than ever? Maybe some things aren't meant to be forgiven, she told Mark one night. Maybe I'm supposed to just let him die and move on. Mark looked at her with those kind eyes she'd fallen in love with. Is that what you want? Or is that just easier? Of course it's easier, Sarah exploded. Do you know what forgiveness costs? It costs admitting that the story I've told myself my entire adult life might be wrong. It costs letting go of the armor that's kept me safe. It costs being vulnerable to someone who already hurt me once. You're right, Mark said softly. Forgiveness costs everything. But Sarah, what's the cost of not forgiving? Look at yourself. Look at what this anger has done to you, to us. You flinch every time I say I love you because you're waiting for me to leave. You can't accept love because you don't believe it's real. That's the cost you're already paying. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about her clients, the ones trapped in cycles of pain, unable to move forward because they were chained to the past. She thought about the advice she'd given them, words that now echoed back with painful clarity. Forgiveness isn't about condoning what happened. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of perpetual hurt. Easy words to say, brutally hard to live. At 3 a.m., Sarah's phone rang. It was the hospital. Her father had taken a turn for the worse. If she wanted to say goodbye, she needed to come now. Sarah drove through empty city streets, her heart racing, her mind spinning. This was it, the moment where she had to decide, not in theory, not in her therapist's office or in long conversations with Mark. Right now, in reality. She walked into that hospital room, and her father's eyes opened weakly. The machines beeped steadily, marking time she didn't have. "Sarah," he breathed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And in that moment, Sarah felt something shift inside her. Not a sudden flood of love, not an erasure of pain, but a simple, profound recognition. This man was dying. Imperfect, broken, human, and dying. She could hold on to her justified anger and let him die with it between them. Or she could choose something different. Not for him, for herself. "Dad," she said, and it was the first time she'd called him that in 15 years. The word felt strange on her tongue, like a language she'd forgotten. "Dad, I need to say something." She pulled her chair close to his bed, took his frail hand in hers. "What you did hurt me. It shaped me in ways I'm still discovering, and I can't pretend that didn't happen. I won't." She paused, tears streaming down her face. "But I also can't keep carrying this anger. Not because you deserve my forgiveness. Maybe you don't. I honestly don't know. But because I deserve peace. I deserve to be free from this weight. I deserve to live my life without your absence being the thing that defines me." Her father was crying now, silent tears running down his cheeks. "I forgive you," Sarah said, and she felt something break open in her chest. Not breaking apart, but breaking open. Like a door she'd kept locked finally swinging wide. "Not because what you did was okay, but because I'm choosing to let go. I'm choosing me. I'm choosing freedom." Her father squeezed her hand with what little strength he had left. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for being braver than I ever was." They sat in silence for a long time, just holding hands. And Sarah realized something. Forgiveness wasn't a feeling. It was a choice. A decision she'd have to make over and over, every time the anger tried to creep back in. But it was a choice she could make now because she'd finally understood what it truly meant. Her father passed away 3 hours later, with Sarah still holding his hand. 6 months have passed since that night in the hospital. And if you asked Sarah if forgiveness made everything perfect, she'd laugh and say no. Because healing isn't linear. Some days are harder than others. Some days she still feels angry. Some days she grieves the relationship they never had. But here's what's different. She's free. She doesn't flinch anymore when Mark says he loves her. She can accept joy without waiting for it to be taken away. She can look at her own reflection and see herself. Not her father's daughter defined by his absence, but Sarah, whole, complete, worthy of love. She went back to therapy herself, not to fix her father's mistakes, but to heal her own wounds. She had hard conversations with her mother about boundaries and truth. She started a support group for adults dealing with parental abandonment, sharing her story to help others find their way through the darkness. Because that's what forgiveness gave her. Not closure, but freedom. Not forgetting, but moving forward. Not erasing the past, but refusing to let it write her future. Here's what Sarah wants you to know, what I want you to know. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's not saying what they did was okay. It's not reconciliation or trust or even relationship. Sometimes forgiveness looks like letting go of someone completely. Sometimes it looks like rebuilding with boundaries. Sometimes it looks like honoring the relationship you had while accepting the one you'll never have. But always, forgiveness is about choosing freedom over prison. Choosing your peace over their debt. Choosing to stop letting the worst thing that happened to you be the most important thing about you. Is there someone you need to forgive? Not for them. For you. Maybe it's a parent who wasn't what you needed. Maybe it's a friend who betrayed you. Maybe it's an ex who broke your heart. Maybe, and this is the hardest one, maybe it's yourself. Maybe you need to forgive yourself for not being perfect, for making mistakes, for being human. Whoever it is, whatever they did, you have a choice. You can carry that weight for the rest of your life, letting it shape every decision, every relationship, every moment of potential joy. Or you can set it down, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Forgiveness doesn't erase your pain. It doesn't make what happened okay. But it does make tomorrow possible in a way today isn't. Sarah's father gave her many things, some good, many painful. But the greatest gift he gave her was the opportunity to choose freedom, to choose herself, to choose life over the half-life of perpetual anger. Your challenge today is this. Think of one person, just one, you've been holding on to anger toward. You don't have to forgive them today. You don't even have to forgive them ever if you're not ready. But ask yourself, what is this anger costing me? What would freedom feel like? And then, when you're ready, maybe today, maybe next week, maybe next year, make the choice that Sarah made. Not for them, for you. Because you deserve to be free. You deserve to live a life where your past informs you but doesn't imprison you. You deserve healing. And sometimes, healing begins with the hardest word in any language. I forgive you. Not because they earned it, but because you're worth it.